house always wins. Play long enough, you never change the stakes, the house takes you. Unless, when that perfect hand comes along, you bet big, and then you take the house. I've been practicing this speech a little bit. Did I rush it? Felt like I rushed.
That was good. I liked it.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Big Easy Bets podcast. I'm your host, Logan, and with me in the studio, Nick Von Brick.
Yo.
This is episode 224. This is going to be our Big Ten Conference football breakdown. We got a couple things to get to before we get to that. Last week, we did the Big 12. Big 10 this week. Next week, we're going to probably do the ACC, and then we'll follow it up, finish the power conferences out with the SEC. Hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. Let's be honest. If you're listening to these episodes at this point, coming up on the middle of summer, talking college football, this is for the diehards, basically. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through the conference, give you our best bet at the end of it in terms of a future, whether that be conference championship, over, under, win total. Nick and I haven't talked about it yet. Last episode, we went with Baylor over 6.5 or 7.5 wins. 7.5, I got it written down. And then you took them 8-1 to win the conference championship. So we're going to do the same thing, break it all down, and then try to give you what we think is the best futures bet for the Big Ten Conference. Again, hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. We got a couple things to get to. Scottie Scheffler won a major championship. That was not the Masters. That just finished. Clear-cut best golfer since Tiger Woods. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
On just a crazy run, and it kind of comes out of nowhere where you realize, like, okay, we're witnessing greatness here. Tiger Woods was, in my opinion, the greatest golfer of all time. Before my time, obviously, was Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, but Scottie Scheffler what he's done over the last couple years is remarkable in terms of the dominance that we've seen and the ability to stay relevant and stay competitive. Like Jordan Spieth had that year in 2015, I think it was, where he just was winning what felt like every tournament, and he was making an incredible amount of like 15-foot putts. But it wasn't sustainable. Scottie Scheffler's doing something that we haven't seen since Tiger Woods, just dominating just about what feels like every single time he steps onto the golf course. And he finally got one. Got the PGA Championship. Everybody was starting to talk about, can he only win the Masters? If you can only win one, that's a good one to win. But he got another one under his belt. I think it's his fourth major now.
Yeah.
It's been an eventful weekend in New Orleans. 11 inmates broke out of prison, and just to add it to the list of the ineptitude of the New Orleans, mayor, sheriff. LaToya Cantrell was giving her press conferences. That was fun to watch. Apparently, 11 inmates broke out of Orleans Parish Prison, and it took like 6 hours for the sheriff to even find out. You saw that?
No.
I'm pretty certain. So they broke out at like midnight, and it was hours before the sheriff was notified, and then it was even more time before the public was notified. But so look, they're criminals, and I'm sure they've all done horrendous shit. So I'm not sympathizing with the criminals, but I'm putting myself in this hypothetical scenario in their shoes. So they broke out what looked like they removed the toilet from the wall and then broke through the wall and got through like a crevice. I don't even know how they got through it. I wouldn't have been able to get through it. I'm fucked. They're all running away, and I'm looking through like Squidward in the SpongeBob meme. He's looking through the window as everybody's outside playing. That's me looking at them as they run away. But that feeling has got to be unbelievable. Of like, we're fucked. We're never getting out of here. And then you take that step outside the walls, and you're like, oh, my God, I am fucking out of here. Except for the 3 dipshits that went down to the quarter and just got caught again. I don't understand. I said this earlier. If I get out, I'm gone. I'm going to goddamn Tijuana or like the woods in Montana or something. I am shaving my head. I'm changing my clothes. I'm doing something to make me unrecognizable, and I'm getting the fuck out of town. They went to the quarter. Probably got hand grenades. Like, it's crazy,
That's
dude.
exactly what they got.
That is crazy. They got him at like they went to the damn Carousel bar.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they got him outside of Hotel Montleon, but it's like just I mean, what are you doing? Get out of fucking town. In a hypothetical scenario, like I'm not advocating for like go get him, but in the like I can't believe that. What do you would never see me again. You would never see me again. I'd go down to goddamn Argentina or something. Like, see ya. So, yeah, like I said, an eventful time in New Orleans. Add it to the list with our fucking random sheriff that came from, like, the Northwest. I think she was in, like, Oregon when that city burned to the goddamn ground. And then she came here and allowed somebody to drive their F-150 down Bourbon Street to ring in the 2025 New Year. And then now this. So what can you do, I guess, other than fucking be better at your job and protect the public better. But in other news, you bowled a 256 today.
Yeah.
So my question is bowling, serious question, is bowling the easiest sport of all time? Because we've bowled probably once a week for the last 3 to 4 weeks. So call it 3, maybe 4 times. Before that, I've never consistently bowled in my life, and neither of you. So we would bowl straight like pretty much everybody. And randomly, so we would bowl, I had bowled maybe like once a year in my life. Over the course of the last month, we bowled once a week. And we decided that we were going to try to put spin on the ball. Bowling might be the easiest sport of all time, and I don't say that lightly. So I need the purists and the diehard bowlers to let me know if I'm wrong here, because today I set my personal best of 223, and then you followed right behind and bowled a 256, bowled 8 consecutive strikes, only had 1 open frame, and we think may have set the record at the fucking bowling alley. The guy said, I don't think anybody's bowled higher than that. I said, we just started bowling fucking 2 weeks ago. You bowled with a house ball.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a legitimate question. Is bowling the easiest sport of all time, or are we just naturals?
I think it's pretty easy. It's about consistency, though, because you're faced with, like, each frame you're faced with the same situation. Mm-hmm. So you got to, if you can do the same thing for 10 frames or close to it and pick up the spares, then you can be pretty good. Yeah,
our good friend of ours, Reed, not exactly the best and brightest, is a great bowler. So Reed, God bless him. We love him. But, I mean, let's put it this way. He can't drive a goddamn car. But this kid can bowl. This kid can bowl over 200 on any given time. So that's why I question, is bowling the easiest sport of all time? I really think it might be. What is a harder sport than bowling? We got up off the couch cold. I bowled a 175.
Yeah.
Today to start the day. That average bowl I think I had was like 155. So yeah, in terms of a sport like that, bowling literally might be the easiest one.
Yeah, we're still learning.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just up there throwing the ball at the pins, knocking them all down. I looked at it. So mine, I bowled the 223, but I didn't fucking strike in the 10th. I got 9 pins and then left it open. Didn't even pick up the spare. Still bowled a 223. I had 7 strikes. You had 8 strikes in your 256. That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And we don't know what we're doing. We're just out there.
Yeah, and in the second bowl of the 10th frame, I hit 9. And picked up the spare on the 10th.
But you literally started bowling with spin last week, halfway through playing. And so technically, like, this is the first full bowling experience of bowling with spin. And you might have set the alley record. This alley hadn't been reopened for very long. But, I mean, a goddamn 256, you're probably never going to do that again.
Yeah, it'll be a long time.
But who knows? Because I bowled 7 strikes, you bowled 8.
Yeah.
So I don't think bowling's hard.
Yeah, I bowled like 4 strikes in a row before, but, you know, like I kept going up there and striking. I was like, one of the pins would stay and then get knocked over. It was crazy.
No, it was crazy. And then the employee, I asked him, I was like, what's the record? And he said a number, and I was like, well, he just bowled a 256. And I showed him the picture. And then he's showing us pictures of his 190. It's like, buddy, we just bowled a 223 and a 256. Shove that 190 up your ass, pal. We're not worried about that. Yeah, I don't think bowling's hard. I could be wrong. And if somebody's listening and they're a diehard bowler and they're great at bowling, challenge us. We'll film it and we'll go play a match. We'll film. We can do whatever stakes you want. I don't think it's a hard sport. I could be wrong. So, and I want to be proven wrong. That's pretty much all I got before we get to this Big Ten breakdown. What else is going on? Anything?
Not really.
Alrighty. Again, hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. If you haven't already listened, you can go back and listen to our Big 12 breakdown if you're interested. This is for the sickos. This is for the diehards. This is for the people who don't have anything better to do, and you're like me, and you're just counting down the days till college football comes back. So this is for you. This is why we're doing this. I trust our knowledge. I trust our research. We had a successful year last year. I had a very successful year when it came to the futures. We cashed our Ohio State national championship bet. It was the only national championship future that I had. And we're back. We're going to try to find another one. I'm telling you right now, I'm not betting on Ohio State to win the national championship. I don't know who I'm betting to win the national championship. It's not going to be it may be in the Big Ten, but I don't have it placed currently. So let's start from the top, I suppose. First off, did you look into Indiana?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. I don't have much on Indiana. That was one that I glossed over somehow in my research. Let's see. Okay, so the way the Big Ten Conference broke down, Oregon won the conference championship. They were 9-0 in conference play, 13-1 overall. Head coach Dan Lanning is back. Obviously, 2024 record 13-1, 9-0 in conference play. The over/under heading into 2025 sits at 10.5 wins. It's minus 110 both ways. So if you're feeling good about this, neither side's juiced heavily, so it's just the typical. 2024 clearly was a dream season for Oregon until it wasn't. And then they ran into Ohio State in the rematch in the college football playoff. And to say it wasn't competitive would have been an understatement. Ohio State absolutely blew the doors off of them. But up until that point, Oregon was having a fantastic season. It's going to be interesting, the turnover that they're going to have to make up for. They lost their quarterback. They lost their running back. They lost their top 2 wide receivers. They lost their number 1 tight end, Ferguson, all to the NFL. Dylan Gabriel, third round to the Browns. Tez Johnson and Trayshawn Holden were 2 fantastic wide receivers. And it's really going to come down to, and this is going to be the trending theme. The trending theme of the Big 12 was that there's a lot of really good quarterbacks.
Yeah, returning starters.
Yes. The trending theme of the Big Ten is going to be a lot of unproven quarterback questions, in my opinion. Dante Moore, it's looking like, is going to be taking over for Dylan Gabriel. He's going to have a solid enough wide receiver room. I think Evan Stewart is going to have to assert himself as the number 1 wide receiver in that room if they're going to have the success that they're wanting to have. On the depth chart, he's going to be the number 1 guy. But DeCorian Moore, previously committed to LSU, flipped to Oregon, probably got paid a bag. He is the number 1 overall recruit coming in at wide receiver, and from what I'm hearing, he's fucking really good. Not that comes as much of a shock, but it looks like he's ready to contribute from day one. I don't know that it's going to be on the level that we saw with Jeremiah Smith, but completely different style of receiver. But it seems like when this guy gets the ball in his hands, he's a serious playmaker. In the spring practices, when things were breaking down and the quarterbacks had to go somewhere on third down, they were going to DeCorian Moore quite a bit. So it's interesting to see if he's ready to, from day one, step in and contribute. It sounds like he is. A big transfer that they got was Tulane running back Mekhi Hughes. I think he's going to fill in the running back spot and not miss a beat. I think Mekhi Hughes is a very good running back, and I think he's going to have some success at Oregon. The schedule, the way it shakes out, is relatively favorable in terms of they don't have to play Ohio State. They don't have to play Michigan. Their toughest game by far is going to be Penn State on the road early in the season. So they play Montana State to start. They play Oklahoma State. They got to go on the road to Northwestern. Then they play Oregon State. Almost without question, you're going to see a 4-0 Oregon team marching into Happy Valley to take on Penn State. If you're Penn State, I think you would probably rather get Oregon earlier in the year with all the turnover, and they're going to – you would imagine that they're going to be playing much better towards the end of the year. It's a lot of people that haven't played together before. So you would expect them to start to gel. This will be a month into the season when they go to Penn State. Going to be one of the premier games. Then you got Indiana on the road against Rutgers, Wisconsin on the road against Iowa, at home against Minnesota, at home against USC, on the road against Washington. It doesn't seem like a very tough schedule. So 10.5 is the win total. Even with the questions, I think that's because of the schedule that you're seeing. So what are your thoughts on them going into Penn State? How much, what do you think their chances are? I know it's hard to say because we haven't seen the teams and all of that, but on paper right now, do you have them winning that game?
No.
Neither do I.
But that game's reminiscent of the game last year between Oregon and Ohio State.
Yeah.
Like, I think
they could pull something out.
There's questions with Ohio State, and we'll get there.
Yeah.
But this seems like it could be shaping up for a rematch either. We thought it was going to be the Big Ten championship last year with Oregon and Ohio State, but Ohio State ended up losing to Michigan in the final game of the year and getting knocked out of that spot. But it kind of feels like these teams are going to play again.
Yeah. Either
in the conference championship or possibly in the playoff.
Yeah, I agree. So what we're going to do, I was making a bad habit of like giving my opinion on the win total or things like that before we got to the end. We're just basically breaking it all down for you, giving you our thoughts, and then we'll give you the best bet at the end. I'm going to try not to, I guess.
Yeah, but look, Mekhi Hughes, that's a huge get, one of the biggest gets in the transfer portal, 17 total touchdowns last year for Tulane, 1,400 rushing yards. Like you said, they also got the transfer from Florida State, Malik Benson, who really didn't do much last year, but not going to put too much blame on him because of the quarterback situation over there. I don't really think anyone did anything over there as far as
that was a dumpster fire.
Putting up receiving numbers. And then you mentioned it, DeCorian Moore. I think, like you, he's going to contribute right away.
Yeah.
I can already hear it. More to more for a big play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the biggest question's quarterback. Dante Moore backed up Dylan Gabriel last year, didn't get much playing time last year, and then the year before that, he was a true freshman, probably forced to play a little bit too early. 53.8% completion percentage, 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions at UCLA. So there's really a lot of questions like, how much has he improved? I mean, he was a true freshman, probably not ready to be put in the starting quarterback role at that time. But then he gets a year to kind of sit and learn. So it's going to be how much has he improved, and is he going to be able to replace Gabriel in that at that position?
Yeah, I agree. All right, so after Oregon, second place in the Big Ten, you had Indiana. Overall, 11-2, 8-1 in conference play. The best Indiana season that we've seen in quite some time. Curt Cignetti came in and, I mean, turned them into a contender, so we thought, and kind of talked the talk and walked the walk and was a polarizing figure in college football. And then they ran into some better teams, and it didn't go as well. But when they had to play that step up in class, didn't go as well, but it's an Indiana team. I think it was clearly a successful season, but you got a lot of turnover. You lose Curtis Rourke, obviously, who played extremely well for them. But I was thinking, so they had some offensive line guys that they had to replace. They got transfer center coming in, transfer right guard, transfer right tackle. So I'm like, okay, we're going to see Indiana kind of regress. Maybe not as far back, but we're going to see them fall back from what we saw last season. And I still feel that way, but I feel less because then they went and hit the portal and they got Fernando Mendoza from Cal. And if you've listened to us throughout the season, this past season and the season before, I'm a fan of Fernando Mendoza. I think he's a good player, and I think he's got a lot of potential. I'm very interested to see how it goes at Indiana. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it's a good replacement for Curtis Rourke. With the schedule, you got him playing Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. Probably going to start 3-0. Then you get Illinois at home. You got to go to Iowa. You got to go on the road to Oregon. You play Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue. So you avoid Ohio State, but you got to go on the road to Oregon. You got to play Penn State. It's not the easiest schedule in the world. A lot of people are high on Illinois this year. What are your thoughts on Indiana? Do you see them duplicating the success that they had last year, or do you think we see a little fall back to the normal?
Yeah, I mean, with having to play at Penn State and at Oregon, there's just no way Indiana's going to be able to compete for the Big Ten championship this year like they were last year.
Yeah.
I think they'll still be pretty good. Definitely the better half of the Big Ten, Indiana will be included in that. Probably a second-tier team behind the teams that are going to compete for the conference. But, yeah, Fernando Mendoza, it's a huge get to replace Rourke. And then, I don't know, you mentioned the transfers on the offensive line. I think, didn't they have a lot of transfers last year?
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it's kind of a new theme, and Cignetti, he's been involved in transfer portal for a couple years. So, I don't know. I think they remain competitive, but having two tough road games like this, I just think that's two definite conference losses for them.
Yeah, so the win total looks, it's 8.5. It's slightly juiced to the under, -122. You get an even money if you like the over. So can you get to 9 wins? You got to play Oregon, probably a loss. You got to play at Penn State, probably a loss. And when I say probably, it's their losses. And then you've got Illinois, which is a very tough game. But you got Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. Probably going to be 3-0 going into that Illinois game. You got to go on the road to take on Iowa. But question marks there at quarterback. That's the theme of this conference is question marks at quarterback. Michigan State, another question marks at quarterback. Talented guy. We'll get to him. We'll talk about Aiden Childs and the Spartans. But does he take that step? UCLA. We know Imaliava, but we know the struggles that he had. So it's a lot. It's hard to. I would almost be willing to take a shot on the over here, but I'm not. And I said I wasn't going to give my thoughts on the total, but it's just another team. It's a lot of question marks. I like Mendoza though. I think they've got a good coaching staff over there. I don't think it's. I agree with what you're saying. I don't think they're not going to compete for the conference title. This conference is a 2, maybe a 3-horse race. Or I'm sorry, 3. You could maybe argue a 4 if you're a believer in Michigan, but it's not. It's Ohio State, it's Penn State, it's Oregon. Those are the 3 teams competing for this conference title, in my opinion. And then there's a pretty severe drop-off in expectancy or what I see happening going into this next season. So I think it was more of a Cinderella run for the Hoosiers last year. I think we see them fall back a little bit here. So, all right, next on the list, we've got Penn State. Head coach James Franklin, everybody knows him at this point. 2024 record was 13-3, 8-1 in conference play. They made the college football playoff. Andy Kotelnicki returns. a big get. Defensive coordinator Jim Knowles comes over from Ohio State. It's not normally the issue for Penn State being their defense, but I would say this is an upgrade. I think Jim Knowles is a fantastic defensive coordinator. One thing I will say is that we typically see it's a tough system for people to learn, and normally we see a jump in production under Jim Knowles' system year 2. So do we see struggles year 1? I don't necessarily know. There's a lot of talent over there at Penn State, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Quarterback questions again, and in my opinion. And how can you say that with Drew Aller, projected to be first-round pick, probably top 10? In my opinion, the biggest question is, can Drew Aller take that leap? The projected win total, 10.5 wins, shaded to the under, minus 164. If you want to take over, you think they win 11 games, plus 134. Katron Allen and Nick Singleton both return. 2 of the best backs in the country, for sure. They addressed the wide receiver position in the portal, getting Devontae Ross from Troy. I think this guy's going to be pretty damn good. 76 catches, 1,043 yards, and 11 touchdowns in 2024. And they got Kyron Hudson from USC. But you also lose Tyler Warren to the NFL. And Tyler Warren, they pretty much gave him the ball what felt like every single damn play. He could run it, he could pass it, he could catch it. He did a lot for him. You can expect the same dominant run game and stout defense, but the question is, can Drew Aller take his game to the next level? I'm not sure that he can. He made a lot of really, really bad decisions down the stretch at the most critical moments against Notre Dame. And I really do. In that game, he was 12 of 23, 135 yards in the game-ending interception. Not one wide receiver on the team caught a pass, which is crazy to think about. Not one wide receiver caught a pass. They tried to address the position in the portal. I think the schedule's favorable. You get Oregon early in the season, like I mentioned before, with a lot of turnover. When you look at it, you got Nevada, FIU, Villanova, 3-0 going into Oregon. On the road against UCLA, but they should be able to handle it even with them getting 5-star quarterback Nico Amaliava. You got Northwestern at Iowa. At Ohio State's obviously going to be a tough game. Versus Indiana, at Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers. So if you think that they're going to get Oregon or Ohio State, I would imagine you like the over. 10.5 wins. But what are your thoughts going into 2025 with Penn State? And do you think that everybody kind of said, like, oh, they got over the hump. They won that game. They played SMU to start. You know what I mean? I don't know that they got over a hump, in my opinion. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of the top teams, they have the toughest schedule because they have to play. They're the only team that has to play 2 of the top teams.
Yeah.
So,
two of the best 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the only team that they have to play Oregon and Ohio State. Ohio State and Oregon don't play each other. They both just play Penn State. So that's tough there. Luckily, they get to play Oregon at home early in the year. And then you mentioned it. The receivers that they got are studs through the transfer portal. Kyron Hudson is a huge get. USC, they had such a crowded wide receiver room and really subpar quarterback play. So you look at the stats, 38 receptions for 462 yards and only 3 touchdowns. He's probably going to be, I would say, without a doubt, Penn State's top receiving weapon for the 2025 season. And then you mentioned it, Devontae Ross from Troy. I watched him play. He's incredible. He had 2 deep touchdowns against Iowa, and he's also a really good returner as well. So offensively, I think Penn State might be a little bit better this year. I think they'll probably have to lean on the running game a little bit more. It has to meet expectations. It feels like the past couple of years, you have backs like this, NFL caliber running backs, and you're not really able to lean on the running game like you want. I think this year will have to be a little bit different. And then defense, getting Jim Knowles, I mean, that's huge. And it's a huge loss for Ohio State as well. But I don't know that there's questions. I mean, how do you judge right now having to play Oregon so early, I mean, that'll be a game that tells us a lot. And then Ohio State, what are they going to do? Because they have some guys to replace as well.
Yeah, I would very much lean Penn State in that game just because of the continuity. And like we said a couple times now, Oregon has a lot of turnover that they have to deal with. But do you think Drew Aller takes the next step?
Yeah. You
do?
Yeah, I think this year he'll have better receiving weapons. I know they lose Warren, but, outside of Warren last year, they had Julian Fleming.
Yeah.
They just didn't have a ton of guys to go to. So it was like, if it's a crucial situation, they're looking for Warren, and if he's not open, Aller might make a mistake. So I think this year with the 2 receiver additions they got in the transfer portal, I think he'll improve even more. I thought he improved last year from the year before.
Yeah.
And I expect him to get a little bit better this year.
Yeah. Okay, down the list we go. Ohio State, 14-2 overall, 7-2 in conference play. Ryan Day finally gets the job done, and they win the national championship. We cashed our futures bet. It was a good season. It was, for me at least, it was a tough regular season for Ohio State. You lose the tough one to Oregon with the Will Howard slide, and then you blow a game against Michigan, and you can't. They got you again, and but Ohio State gets the last laugh. They go run roughshod through the college football playoff and handle business and get the job done. 10.5 is the win total, shaded to the under pretty heavily, -170, +138 if you want to go over. Again, stop me if you heard it before, but it's quarterback questions. Julian Sayin is expected to be the starter. They lose Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins to the NFL. You can make a very serious argument, the best running back combo in the country. But they did go out and get C.J. Donaldson from West Virginia, a very good running back, a guy that I like quite a bit. He was pretty much West Virginia's. I mean, Green was pretty good, and they could throw the ball around a little bit. But C.J. Donaldson, when healthy, made that offense go. This is Sayin second year with the program. He transferred in from Bama, sat behind Will Howard last year. They got a very big transfer, tight end, Max Clare from Purdue. He's going to be a very fucking good tight end. And they've got Jeremiah Smith coming back. They got a couple different Tate's coming back. They got the wide receiver room's going to be fine. You're going to get probably the best tight end in the country. A solid running back, a very good running back. Defense, I don't think is going to skip much of a beat. They have talent on that side. It is tough, though, to lose Jim Knowles, and now you got a new system coming in. Jim Knowles is probably the best D coordinator in the country. So huge get for Penn State, big loss for Ohio State. There's really no weaknesses on the roster. There's just questions at quarterback, in my opinion. Offensively, I think if the quarterback's good, they're going to be just as good as last year. When you have Jeremiah Smith, fucking your life becomes a whole lot easier. So, but that's a big if. So the schedule's tough. The win total's 10.5. You start the season against Texas. These two teams are the betting favorite to win the national championship. You start the season against Texas, then you play Grambling, you play Ohio, you got to go on the road against Washington, Minnesota, on the road against Illinois. At Wisconsin, you take on Penn State, Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, and then on the road against Michigan. What are your thoughts on the Buckeyes? You think they repeat?
No.
It's hard to repeat. Very hard.
Yeah, I think it's really tough. I mean, having to replace both of your coordinators is a big issue, right?
Yeah.
So they replace one guy in-house with Brian Hartline, the wide receivers coach, is going to become the offensive coordinator. And then Matt Patricia coming in as a defensive coordinator. It's a pretty good get, a guy who was a really good defensive coordinator in the NFL for the Patriots.
I've never been a huge Matt Patricia fan, though.
Well,
I get what you're saying.
He was good until he became a head coach.
Yes, and that's probably what leaves a bad taste in my mouth is the fucking pencil in the ear, being the Lions coach, and
And then they let him coach the offense for some reason.
That was
odd.
That was a weird move. Well, that was when he went back to New England, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
Because
they do whatever the fuck they want over there.
Going on. But yeah, you just wonder. They have a lot of guys to replace. Just mainly JTT and Sawyer.
Yeah,
like those guys.
Cornerstone.
A lot of
players.
experience.
Yes.
Gone now. And then losing the defensive coordinator, also probably having to adjust a little bit with scheme and stuff like that. And it'll be interesting to see how well he uses Caleb Downs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine he would want to do the same thing Jim Knowles did last year.
I think you'd be a fool not to, because I think non-quarterback position, I think they have the two best players in the country on either side of the ball.
Yeah. And then running backs. They lost the two NFL caliber running backs. They get the transfer in, will help, but, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's hard to repeat. It's very, very hard to repeat. We see it every year. There's regression. It's a lot of shoes to fill. Jeremiah Smith's probably the best wide receiver I've ever seen in my entire life, but it was an easier go when you had Egbuka on the other side. So this is they put a lot of people into the NFL. A lot of people went in the draft for good reason. So a lot of production to fill. We'll see if they can do it. And with Penn State, with a lot of people coming back, it just becomes harder. Oregon trying to reload and do it again. It's a tough conference. Down the list we go. 10-3 overall for Illinois. A very good season. 6-3 in conference play. Brett Bielema is back. If I remember correctly, there might have been rumblings of like him potentially being on the hot seat. He basically put a stop to that. 7.5 is their win total going into 2025. Juice to the over, -154. The under, +126. Illinois is returning a ton of production. A lot of veteran players. This was a team I was high on last year. If you remember, I was a big fan of Luke Altmaier. I felt like he was a very good player. He's back, and he's going to be behind a stellar offensive line. They quietly had 10 wins for the first time in 25 years. It was a very good season for Illinois. Starting running back Josh McCray left for Georgia, but Aiden Laffery is a solid back, expected to take the starting role. Top two wide receivers, Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin, also left for the NFL. So that's not good. That's a lot of production there. They made a lot of big plays for Illinois in some important spots down the stretch. The schedule's favorable. You don't have to play Oregon, Penn State, or Michigan. A lot of people, there's rumblings that this Illinois team could be last year's Indiana. This may be the team that we see have the success that Indiana had, and they may find themselves into the college football playoff. You start the season taking on Western Illinois. You got to go take on Duke on the road. Then you play Western Michigan. Then you got to go to Indiana. You play USC, Purdue, Ohio State, on the road against Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern. So when you're looking at it, 7.5 wins. You got to get to 8. The 4 losses, obviously, Ohio State. And then, I mean, really, when you go past that, who are the other guaranteed losses, in your opinion?
You know, there's like no real guarantees, but certainly a tough game early in the year against Duke.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see how Duke is this year now that they have a quarterback that played pretty well as a freshman at Tulane.
Yep.
Indiana, certainly going to be a competitive game. And then USC will probably be a competitive game as well.
Yeah. And then you've got don't sleep on Washington. We're about to get to Washington. Don't sleep on Washington. And then Wisconsin's another one that interests me too, because I think Luke Fickell's a pretty good coach, which we'll get to that. But yeah, I would argue that Illinois has one of the easier schedules. You avoid, other than Ohio State, you avoid all the other like top teams.
Yeah, but compared to like some of the non-conference teams that the Big Ten get to play, I mean, to have to go on the road to play Duke, who was a decent defensive team last year, just didn't really have much to provide from the offensive side of the ball because of quarterback play. But Yeah, I don't know. I do like Altmaier a lot. So
He's a damn good player. He is, and it's one of those in a conference where there's a lot of quarterback questions. There's not with him. You know he's going to be a solid player. The skill positions is where it gets a little more iffy, I guess. But I mean, they really return a ton of production, and like I said, Lafferty's a really good running back, and you're running behind an offensive line that's been there, and they know each other well. I would say they're going to be one of the better offensive lines in the country. So they're a team to watch for sure. They bring in transfer wide receiver Hudson Clement. He's expected to start. He comes over from West Virginia. But it is a lot of production that you got to make up for. A lot of defensive line transfers, but in the back end with safety and corner, a lot of people coming back. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if they can live up to what's beginning to be some preseason rumblings on the success that we could see them have. So after Illinois, we had Iowa. It was a drop-off in wins after Illinois. Nobody else hit double-digit wins. Iowa was 8-5, 6-3 in conference play. Kirk Ferentz is back. 7.5 is the win total. The talk coming into 2024 was pretty much the same as the past few years. Wait till you see this new offense with Iowa. And it was improved, but mainly due to how effective running back Caleb Johnson was. But Iowa finished the season 32nd in offensive efficiency. So that's why I would say it was improved. McNamara started originally, but then we did see Brendan Sullivan come in, and he showed promise with the dual threat ability. He transferred to Tulane to take over for what's-his-name that went to Duke. So Mark Gronowski comes in from South Dakota State. He's viewed as another dual threat guy, similar skill set to Sullivan. And let's be honest, we saw Sullivan in the bowl game look like absolute dog shit.
Yeah, I think Sullivan sucks.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he was good. There was hype, though, when he first came in, and it was like, this guy might be good.
Yeah, he did a few good things, but then, dude,
and then when
it might have even been before the bowl game. I
Yeah.
bet on him one game, and I was like, oh, my God.
No, it was clear.
Because he kept running, trying to run, but he couldn't really run that well. I was like, and then he was scared to get hit.
No, it's like in that Iowa game, it hit me like a ton of bricks where I was like, oh, we made a mistake. This guy fucking stinks. And we had a ton of success in bowl season, like historic success. That was a tough one. So is Mark Gronowski, it's again, quarterback questions. New guys coming in. South Dakota State, is he going to be able to have the success that they're hoping? Kamari Moulton is set to fill the void left from Caleb Johnson. Moulton averaged 5.6 yards per carry. He's a good running back. And he's not going to be necessarily as good as Caleb Johnson, I wouldn't think, but I don't think they're going to necessarily skip much of a beat from that aspect. I really don't expect a huge drastic difference with this Iowa team. They've pretty much been what you see is what you get. It's been that way for what feels like a damn decade at this point. The schedule's pretty difficult. I don't see much success against the step up in class, Penn State, Oregon, Indiana, but then you have to go on the road against Iowa State, on the road against USC, on the road against Nebraska. Your non-conference, you've got Albany, you've got UMass. They play Iowa State in the non-con. I don't have an opinion. I just think it's a tough schedule, and it's Iowa.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think they'll probably I don't know. Losing Caleb Johnson is going to be hard
He was a stud
to fill because he was all they had last year offensively.
I do think Kamari Moulton's going to be good, though. I think he's a quality back. It's just Caleb Johnson was an NFL caliber running back.
But, yeah, the quarterback, Mark Gronkowski from South Dakota State, two-time FCS national champion. This kind of reminds you of the situation that Minnesota was in last year with Brosmer, who was a FCS quarterback, and Matt Saluka, who was off to a hot start with UNLV, but then decided he was done with all that.
Yeah, and then it looked like, oh, the other guy's better.
Yeah. And that guy was what was his name? Malik Williams.
From the Campbell Camels.
He was an FCS guy as well. So we've seen guys step up and do okay. I would say Brosmer did okay for Minnesota. So Luka didn't really look much like a quarterback.
So we'll get to Minnesota. I thought Brosmer did pretty solid. I felt like, which we'll get to Minnesota. Brosmer's in the NFL right now, and they're saying that he's going to be a backup for the Vikings. He's going to make the roster. He's a good quarterback. They just weren't able to run the ball, which was not common for Minnesota.
That was true.
So because I was on Minnesota in quite a few spots, I was kind of high on Brosmer coming into the year. I didn't think he was not bad. I felt like he did better than Callie McManus, and then Callie McManus went to Rutgers, obviously, and we're going off on a tangent, but oddly had weird success in certain spots over there with the Scarlet Knights. But yeah, I don't know. I felt the need to come to Brosmer's defense.
Yeah, but getting him is huge, and then they got Hank Brown too from Auburn. So you have probably a better backup than you had last year.
Yeah.
Even though Hank Brown isn't any good, like if he was your starting quarterback, Iowa's win total probably be at like 5.5. Mm-hmm. But still, I think the biggest issue for Iowa last year was quarterback injuries. And then they were kind of playing people that you barely even knew. So, I don't know. 7.5, probably not gonna. I think it's probably 8-4 or 7-5 this year for Iowa.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly either way. I just think it's Iowa. This is Iowa football, and they lose an incredible running back. So, it's probably more of the same. If you, for some reason, see something that you think is favorable, go ahead, fire the over. But the schedule's pretty tough, in my opinion. So if it was maybe a little lighter schedule, but it's not. So down the list, Michigan. And this will be an interesting one to talk about. 8-5 overall, 5-4 in conference play. Sharon Moore is back, possibly facing a suspension of 2 games. Looks like they gave him the cupcake games to get out of. Over under win total, 8.5 wins. Shaded to the over, -158. Under is +128. And Bryce Underwood is going to be the starting quarterback of the Michigan Wolverines. Previously, just like DeCorian Moore, number 1 wide receiver, previously committed to LSU. And then in the middle of the night, Michigan came in and dropped a bag on his doorstep. And he said, I'm going to go actually play for Michigan now, not LSU. Clearly wanted to come to LSU. Michigan was never a thought. And then money talks. So he's going to suit up. Don't shoot up for the Wolverines. And a lot of questions are going to be answered. I hope he's terrible. I hope he doesn't live up to any of the hype or the expectations. But in 2024, Michigan fielded one of the worst offenses we've seen in quite a while. I mean, it was abysmal. Davis Warren, I'm blanking on his name. Who was the Alex Orji? I could throw the ball better than Alex Orji. And then out of nowhere, they beat Ohio State, and everybody forgot. And then they got Bryce Underwood, and nobody gave a shit about 2024. So I don't know what to think about this Michigan team. They bring in Justice Haynes, transfer running back from Alabama, averaged 5.7 yards per carry. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts with the Wolverines?
Yeah, they'll probably be. I don't know. They'll probably be a little bit better than last year, but just because they'll have somewhat of a passing attack.
Mm-hmm. I watched the kid in the spring game. Obviously, crazy arm talent. I was watching with a bias. I hope he doesn't look fucking good. Missed a lot of throws. He could hit a comeback route on the sideline. It's going to be a lot of safe throws, if I had to imagine. The arm talent's clearly there, but wasn't impressed.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a jump as a team they're going to make, because you got 4 first-round talent guys that you lost to the NFL.
But you also got Will Johnson going.
That's That's who
first-round
I'm
talent.
including him
he is a
in
talent,
it because he is a first-round talent. Just injuries made him drop.
Yeah.
So, to me, it's like, I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised to see him at 850 to win the conference. I would be so shocked if they won the conference. Like, I don't even know what I would need to bet on them to win.
If they won the conference, then we fumbled a generational fucking quarterback and we'll never live it down. That's what that means.
Yeah, so, plus 850. I mean, to me, a 20-1 would probably be a fair price.
Yeah, I agree.
And I still wouldn't want to bet on it because I don't think there's much of a chance here.
No, I agree.
Although you kind of look at the schedule, I mean, Ohio State, it's the toughest game. It's the last one.
Yeah, Maryland, easy. Northwestern, easy. Purdue, easy. Like bottom feeders of the conference. Michigan State, Washington, USC, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Central Michigan. Oklahoma's an interesting one. And then New Mexico. You got to win 9 games. You can lose 3. Ohio State's your loss. After that, where's the guaranteed loss?
Nebraska. Yeah, that's why their win total's sitting at
Oklahoma is tough. Very tough. At Nebraska is tough. USC's tough. Don't sleep on Washington. Yeah, if they had a tougher schedule, you'd be looking at a lower win total. I agree. So, I don't know why my connection's just going to shit over here. Let's see. All right. Next up, we got Minnesota. 2024, PJ Fleck returns. 2024, 7-5, 5-4 in conference play. Heading into 2025, win total sits at 6.5 wins, shaded to the over -150, plus 122 for the under. Last year, we saw Max Brosmer, who we just talked about, come in with some hype. And it's hard to say not live up to it, but a 7-5 season, you made a bowl game, but I would say with the preseason hype, they didn't live up to it. But I don't necessarily, like I said, think it was all on Brosmer. For some reason, they couldn't run the ball. And it feels like PJ Fleck has been either out the door or on the hot seat for a few years now. If I remember correctly, he really wanted the UCLA job and was considering that. And then he always comes back, though, and has enough success. And they're a scrappy team no matter who they're playing. If you got to play them at home, you kind of got it. You got to watch out for them. Darius Taylor's a fantastic running back. He was battling some injuries last year, but I'm a big fan of him. I think they made some good portal acquisitions with Javon Tracy and Logan Loya. Javon Tracy, I think, is going to be a very good wide receiver. Logan Loya was the leading wide receiver last year for I'm blanking on it. Was it fucking UCLA? I think he was the chain mover. But Drake Lindsey comes in, and he was on the team last year, sat behind Brosmer. I think a good guy to kind of sit behind. And I was listening to a couple of his interviews, and he felt like he showed him how to be a pro and showed him how he should operate from the quarterback position and how he should carry himself during the week and build up to game day. Drake Lindsey's got a lot of arm talent. Mobile enough, but he's not going to do it with his legs. He's got a lot of arm talent. Watched his highlights. On paper, he's an NFL quarterback, 6'5", 230 pounds with a big arm. The win total 6.5. Schedule, you got to go Buffalo, Northwestern, at Cal. Northwestern State, sorry, not Northwestern. At Cal, Rutgers, at Ohio State, versus Purdue at home, Nebraska at home, on the road against Iowa, Michigan State at home, on the road against Oregon, on the road against Northwestern, and at home against Wisconsin. Do you have anything outside of that on Minnesota and with PJ Fleck?
No, not really. I mean, you basically touched on it with Lindsey as starting quarterback. Just not much experience, so not really any tape to really judge. It is good. I do kind of like quarterback situations where a guy has sat for a year and then gets his chance to play rather than these guys who transfer all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Darius Taylor, 12 total touchdowns. He was led the team in rushing, but also the third leading receiver. So he's a guy that can do a little bit of both. It seems like Minnesota, the O-line, they got to figure out how to run the ball again.
I think they will. Darius Taylor's a good back, but yeah, it was odd because typically that's what they do, and they've got. I think the defense is going to be a solid defense. They got a really good safety play. So yeah, it's another one of those. Again, quarterback questions. Guy coming in that we haven't seen play yet. Is he going to be able to live up to the expectations? And will they have more success? Because Brosmer was in that same category of a guy that we hadn't seen play and then came in and showed flashes in spots, but at the end of the day didn't really live up to at least how much hype there was. So, all right, after Minnesota, you got Rutgers. That's the thing about the Big Ten Conference. It ain't fucking 10 teams. It's a lot more than 10 now. Greg Schiano's back for Rutgers, unless I'm mistaken. 2024 record was 7-5, 4-5 in conference play. Win total sits at 5.5, shaded to the over, -142, plus 116 if you want the under. Ethan Kaliakmanis is back at quarterback, but they're going to have to replace a ton of production with Kyle Monangai. Schedule's very tough. You have to play the three best teams, Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. You got to go on the road to Illinois. You got to go on the road to Washington. So not exactly favorable there. Kaliakmanis is one of those, like, you bet on him, he fucking sucks. You bet against him, he lights it up. And it was hard for me to get on the right side of Kaliakmanis, but what are your thoughts on Rutgers? Do you expect anything?
Rutgers had a top 10 transfer portal class.
Yeah.
Ranked 8th. So, yeah, but it's like, can only go as far as your quarterback will take you, and Kaliakmanis, I don't like him. But yeah, I will admit at times he looks okay. And then at other times, I'm like, okay, that's a Kaliakmanis I know.
Yeah.
So what he does well is he's a pretty good RPO guy. He can really rifle it in there, sometimes probably a little too hard. But yeah, got to replace a really good running back. They got the transfer from Florida Atlantic, C.J. Campbell Jr., 11 rushing touchdowns last year, 844 yards. So I'm sure they'll kind of be a similar type team where, they run the ball, do some RPOs, try to spread it out a little bit that way, and then, defense will probably be good as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Down the list we go. And again, just to reaffirm, this is good for us because it brushes us up on personnel and transfers and moves. It's going to be very beneficial as we go into the 2025 season. So, dude, I'm in the midst of not being able to see the motherfucking depth charts. It's got to be an issue with the site. And it's been throwing me for a loop for fucking 10 minutes now. I've been trying to, I put my hotspot on. That's not the problem. And now I'm just realizing that I'm trying other, links, and it's going right to it. So it's something with the site. And I've been over here battling it for a fucking minute now. So I don't like that. That's an issue. All right, let's see. USC. God bless. Bear with me. 2024, 7-6, 4-5 in conference play. Going into 25, the win total sitting at 7.5. pretty much even both ways. Minus 118 for the over, minus 104 for the under. Lincoln Riley's back at head coach. USC got off to a good start when they beat LSU. Miller Moss was in the Heisman Trophy conversation for a little while there, and that quickly went away when they played a defense. But I mean, we've talked about it. They were on the fortunate side of a ton of jump balls, and things went their way in that game. But it wasn't a very good season for the Trojans. How many more 7-6 seasons do you think Lincoln Riley has at his disposal for USC?
Not many.
This season, you got Oregon on the road. You've got Notre Dame on the road. You got to play Michigan. You got to go on the road to Illinois. You got to play, that's pretty much the bulk of it, I guess, but you end the season with UCLA, obviously. You got to go on the road to Nebraska. It's not the easiest of schedules. What are your thoughts? What are your expectations?
Yeah, the schedule's tough. Clearly, USC, they didn't achieve the expectations last year. They finished 6-6, 4-5 in conference. Inconsistencies at quarterback. Miller Moss some weeks would look like he was an NFL talent, and then other weeks, you know, he looked like he should be benched, and eventually he was for Jade Mayava, who returns to the team last year. He started the last 4 games. He completed 59.8% of his passes, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, though. And he did add 4 rushing touchdowns. I think the biggest problem with Mayava, even when he was at UNLV, was he just throws the ball to the other team too much.
Yeah, he's talented, but yeah, he makes too many mistakes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of getting to the point where you're kind of expecting USC. I kind of expect USC to maybe. The expectations aren't high this year. I kind of expect them to perform a little bit better than the expectations are. They did lose 2 really good running backs, Woody Marks and Quentin Joyner. Quentin Joyner transferred to Texas Tech. They did do an okay job replacing them, though. In the transfer portal, they got Eli Sanders from New Mexico, 1,000-yard back, averaged 7.2 yards per rush and 9 rushing touchdowns. And then you got another little guy, a sleeper, Wayman Jordan, a junior college transfer. He looked good in the spring. They do lose a lot of talent at wide receiver, but like I was saying earlier, it's like all these guys that they lost are number ones.
Zach Branch.
Yeah, they're all number ones, and like you can't have 4 number ones on the same team. Especially with a quarterback that can't get him the ball. So they lose Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson to Florida State, and Kyron Hudson to Penn State. They did keep Jacoby Lane, who had 12 reception touchdowns, and they kept Makai Lemon, who's a good slot receiver, 764 receiving yards last year and 3 touchdowns. Defensively was the big story for USC last year because that's kind of what kept them in games, whereas the past 2 years when they had Caleb Williams, they had 0 defense at all. So I think USC is kind of taking steps in the right directions. Also, they got the 5-star freshman quarterback, Huson Longstreet. It'd be interesting to see, depending on how Mayava plays, if Riley ends up going to a 5-star freshman again.
Yeah. He's shown he'll do it with Caleb Williams whenever they sent Spencer Rattler down. So, okay, we go to Washington. 6-7 overall, 4-5 in conference play. Jedd Fisch is going into his 2nd season as head coach. Win total sits at 7.5 wins, shaded to the under, just slightly, minus 138, plus 112 for the over. Year 1 with Jedd Fisch, it was also Washington's first year in the Big Ten. They started the season, let's see. I put Will Howard, but that's not correct. Who's the damn guy that started at quarterback? He was at Mississippi State.
Are you asking who's Washington's quarterback?
No, I wrote on my notes wrong. It wasn't Will Howard. It was the goddamn guy who ran
Will Rogers.
Will Rogers, yeah. Why the fuck did I write Howard? He started at quarterback. They were a scrappy team, but inconsistent. but I'm kind of enamored with the direction that this team is going, and it's because of Damon Williams Jr. That is the name to remember after what he did in the bowl game against Louisville. 26 of 32, 374 yards, 5 total touchdowns, a terrible pick six to start the game on the first drive, and then he just lit it up. Lit it the fuck up. There's a lot to be excited about with this offense. Jonah Coleman returns at running back. In 2024, he had 1,053 yards. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry, and he scored 10 touchdowns. They lose leading receiver Giles Jackson to the NFL, but Denzel Boston returns. You could argue that he was the number one and the best receiver that they had. In 2024, he had 834 yards and also had 10 touchdowns himself. Sacks were a big issue. They brought in Carver Willis at left tackle, and then they also got Gearon Hatchett from Oklahoma. Carver Willis came from Kansas State. So they brought in some guys to try to fix the offensive line issue. Damon Williams, on throws, 15-plus yards down the field. He was 15 of 16, 500, just over 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. The way the schedule shakes up, you open the season with Colorado State, then you play UC Davis. You go to Washington State, then you got to play Ohio State. On the road against Maryland, you play Rutgers. On the road against Michigan, Illinois. On the road against Wisconsin, Purdue. On the road against UCLA, and you bring the season home with Oregon. What are your thoughts on on Washington, and do you see them having any success this season?
Yeah, they're certainly hype, and their offense is probably going to be pretty good. With Damon Williams Jr. looked really good and not a whole lot of playing time last year.
Remember, it came down to the 2-point conversion in the bowl game.
He completed 78% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and 2 rushing touchdowns. You mentioned it, flashed in the bowl game against Louisville. Jonah Coleman is the real deal here. I think he's probably one of the better running backs in the Big Ten outside of the 2 that are at Penn State. The wide receiver room, you mentioned it. It's decent. They got Denzel Boston back. Defensively, they're going to be reliant on some transfers. And then they also have to replace their defensive coordinator, Steve Belichick, who went over there to coach with his daddy at North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So
and his daddy's girlfriend.
Yeah. She's the co-defensive coordinator.
Yeah. And the co-offensive coordinator and the co-head coach.
So I thought at times Washington's defensive scheme really kind of helped them out in some games, but we'll see what they're able to do. They get a guy with some experience, Ryan Walters, an older gentleman who's been around the block a little bit, but
they were a scrappy team, and I think Jed Fish is a good coach.
Yeah, so obviously there's going to be a lot of hype when you have a quarterback that played like he did at the end of last year, and then I really do. I love Jonah Coleman. I mean, he was a big part of Washington's success, and it was a real, like if you remember that game against Washington against Rutgers, it was a battle between him and Monangai, like just vicious running. So I like Washington. I don't know how far or how much of an impact they're going to make in the Big Ten because of how tough it is, just from the top to the bottom. But
I agree, and I have a bad habit of I was like, that guy's the best quarterback I've ever fucking seen in that bowl game. That was an incredible game just for one, and I'm pretty sure that brought us back. We needed that final touchdown to cover the number, and it was I remember I wanted them to go for 2 because we didn't want overtime because we could lose in overtime. So I was like, fucking right. I wanted them to get it just because of what they did and the comeback they made, or just scoring that touchdown there at the end. And I remembered, I hope they get this 2-point conversion. But above all else, I was like, thank God they're fucking going for 2. It was just an incredible game, and he just, played so damn good. And I feel like sometimes I have a habit of, I've seen him do it. This guy's going to be fucking the next goddamn Cam Newton. So I'm trying not to overreact and, jump on that hype, I guess. But look, if he can duplicate what he did in that bowl game, this kid's gonna have a fucking really good year. Michigan State, 5-7 overall, 3-6 in conference play. Jonathan Smith, I believe, is going into his second season. The 2025 win total, 5.5 wins. Shaded to the over, -142, +116 for the under. Yeah, second season since coming over from Oregon State. There's a lot to be excited about with the combination of Aiden Childs and Nick Marsh. Marsh will be one of the better wide receivers in America, in my opinion. And he's an NFL guy for sure. This kid's fucking good. Childs has to do a better job of taking care of the ball. Hopefully things slow down for him with a full season under his belt. Running backs Karen Lynch-Adams and Nate Carter both leave for the NFL. Elijah Tolliver comes in from Sacramento State. Multiple offensive line transfers coming in, namely 4-star left tackle Connor Moore. I think we see an improved Aiden Childs. He showed flashes of the ability, the dual threat ability, a lot of arm talent, just some poor decision-making. Did a pretty good job of moving the ball until he got to the red zone and that field got condensed and things became a lot more difficult. I think the schedule's as favorable as possible. You get to avoid Ohio State and Oregon. Can they get a road win between USC, Nebraska, Indiana, Minnesota, or Iowa? You're sitting at 5.5 wins. Shaded to the over, -142. You got Western Michigan, Boston College, Youngstown State, on the road against USC, on the road against Nebraska. Then you play UCLA. You go on the road to Indiana. You got to take on Michigan, on the road against Minnesota. Penn State at home, on the road against Iowa. And then they play Maryland, which I believe is a neutral site game to end the season. I can see why it's shaded to the over, but you're hoping that Aiden Childs, if you like the over, you're expecting Aiden Childs to take that step and live up to the potential. There was a lot of hype when he followed Jonathan Smith over from Oregon State, but it just never really panned out. I was on Michigan State in a couple spots last year, and the ability is there, but then it was just some back-breaking mistakes at the worst moments. So what are your thoughts on the Spartans going into 25?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about most of it. Childs wasn't as bad as statistically it looked. I thought he played better at the end of the year. I'm just not sure how much Michigan State improves. You know, they did okay in the transfer portal, but I don't know if it's enough to really turn the team around.
Yeah. I like Childs, and I think we'll just see. I couldn't back him. I thought about it, but I couldn't do it. Just I got to see the improvement. It was lacking in too many critical areas for me to hop on the wagon, I guess. So, another team needing improvement is Nebraska, at least at the quarterback position. Head coach Matt Rule is back. 2024, they went 7-6, 3-6 in conference play. The 25 win total, 7.5 wins, shaded to the over, -122. Even money if you like the under. This is a big year for Matt Rule, in my opinion, in the Cornhuskers. There was a lot of hype coming into last season thanks to 5-star quarterback Dylan Raiola. Nebraska did not live up to the lofty expectations. They started 5-1, and then they finished the season 1-5. But now you have a more experienced Dylan Raiola, so you'd expect more consistency. Defensive coordinator Tony White left for Florida State. This was a solid Nebraska defense. I don't love the loss there. John Butler is going to take over the position. Nebraska is very high on the linebacker position. They feel like they have a lot of depth there. Leading rusher Dante Dowdle transferred to Kentucky. He had 12 touchdowns. No other running back had more than 2. Emmett Johnson will be the lead back. He averaged just over 5 yards per carry. What are your thoughts, and do you have the schedule for Nebraska?
Yeah, I have it back here.
What are your thoughts? Do you think we see Dylan Raiola take that step? Do we see him finally stop fucking emulating Patrick Mahomes at every turn? And can he become his own person? What are your thoughts?
I think he probably keeps emulating Mahomes, but I do think he's going to become a better player. They got Dana Holgorsen from Houston. Was he the coordinator? I think he ended up taking over coordinator responsibilities halfway through the season last year.
Okay.
I think that kind of helps. If you remember Holgorsen's team at Houston, they were pretty good offensively most of the time, but defensively is where they kind of struggled. Nebraska's a little thin at running back this year. You mentioned it, losing one of their guys to Kentucky.
They also lost, what's his name, Gabe Irvin, which he didn't get a ton of. He didn't have a ton of production, but he was a big body guy. I can't remember where he went. We talked about it maybe last episode. It might have been somewhere in the Big 12. But yeah, that's a position that they gotta figure out some production from.
Yeah, they got two wide receivers from the transfer portal who are gonna start. Dane Key from Kentucky. It was Kentucky's second best wide receiver, 715 yards, 2 touchdowns in 2024. And then they got a guy named Naziah Hunter from Cal, who have 40 receptions, 578 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And then they bring back a talented freshman, Ja'Cory Barney Jr. Last year as a freshman, he had 55 receptions for 447 yards. Didn't get in the end zone his freshman year. So it kind of seems like Raiola's going to have a little bit more weapons here to play with. It'll definitely be interesting to see, because not only are the running backs, not super talented, they really are kind of thin at that position as well. So I think offensively it's going to be interesting to see what type of scheme they go with here. If they try to throw it a little bit more. Or
I was just about to say, I think they're going to. And I think the acquisitions at wide receiver are going to make it more favorable to do so. The kid's talented, and we saw it in flashes. It was just the consistency factor in certain mistakes in the red zone, but you expect to see that. But he had a lot of hype. He had a lot of hype when he came over from Georgia. And when you look at the schedule, you've got to play Penn State, but you avoid Ohio State and you avoid Oregon.
Yeah, no Indiana and no Illinois.
Yeah. So when you really look at it, so you're looking at 7.5 wins. So can you get to 8? Minus 122 shaded to the over. Can you get to 8 wins? So where are your 4 losses coming from? Penn State. And that's the only guaranteed loss, in my opinion. There's questions with Michigan. You can say Michigan. They get Michigan at home. That's a tough place to go play. It's tough. When they're screaming, go Big Red and all that shit, that's a lot of fucking fans in that stadium. So Bryce Underwood's going to have to go in, and that's a tough game.
Yeah, it's early, too.
Yeah. 4th game of the season.
So Michigan, I'm sure they'll be playing cupcakes. Probably most of the games are going to be at home.
Yeah, probably Bryce Underwood's first legitimate test as a starting quarterback. So in terms of guaranteed losses, and there's no such thing as a guaranteed loss, but you know what I mean. The ones you're marking down as an L. Penn State.
Yep.
We got to see what Imaliava does with UCLA. You got to go on the road to UCLA. But Maryland, Minnesota's tough, but it's not. That's going to be a good game. But Michigan State, you got Houston Christian, Akron to open the season with Cincinnati in a neutral.
Yeah.
Might be worth considering an over there.
Yeah, they also got a couple key players on defense in the transfer portal. Cornerback Andrew Marshall, highly touted guy from Idaho. And then they got linebacker Marquez Wilson Trent from Georgia Southern. He was the former Sun Belt Player of the Year for defense. 120 tackles last year, 52 solo tackles, 7.5 tackles for a loss, a sack and a half, and 4 forced fumbles. The other key thing here with Nebraska is they don't play a road game until October 11th at Maryland. So they get to
a true road game. Yeah.
Yeah, a true road game, because they do have to play Cincinnati and Kansas City. But yeah, they don't get a true road test until the 6th game of the year.
Yeah, and it's like with Michigan. So like we were talking about, Michigan comes in. That offense was so goddamn bad, and anybody who had a fucking pulse on that offense went to the NFL. Colston Loveland's gone. Are they going to be able to replace, or not even replace, are they going to be able to add this immense amount of production that you're going to need? That's going to be a tough game. And is Bryce Underwood going to be able to go in and operate under those conditions? And who did they hit on in the portal and to come in and catch passes? I don't know that we see a complete drastic turnaround of this offense. It could be a tough year, or at least a tough start to the season for Michigan. So yeah, I think Nebraska a team to keep an eye on. You agree?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Let's see. So I'm not going to have much on Maryland, Purdue. Small touch on Northwestern. So really, I got UCLA and Wisconsin next. And then if you have anything on those teams, though, by all means, we can talk about them. UCLA, head coach Deshaun Foster's back. 5.5 is the win total, shaded to the under, minus 170. Plus 138 if you want to take the over. In 2024, they went 5-7, 3-6 in conference play. It was a wild offseason for the Bruins after a tough first year for Foster. Going from Joey Aguilar to landing on Nico Amaliava, one of the highest recruited or rated 5-star quarterback prospects. We all know the tumultuous turn of events for Tennessee and UCLA. Amaliava was going to hold out, and we're not going to rehash it all. You know what happened. He ended up in UCLA making probably less money than he was in Tennessee. A fucking bonehead move where he got bad advice probably from his agent, who's also his dumbass dad. The brother, Madden Amaliava, did the same thing and left Arkansas, and he went to UCLA as well. Jalen Berger is slated to be the lead back. He averaged 3.7 yards per carry. Their top 2 wide receivers last season were tight end Molokai Mutavo and running back TJ Harden. Top 2 wide receivers. Not good. I don't know that you see a drastic turnaround with this UCLA offense. Nico Amaliava has a ton of talent. A ton of talent. But I've said it like a broken record, and if you watched, I was very high on Tennessee to the start of last year. Also hit the goddamn nail on the head with the Tennessee-Oklahoma under. There were certain games that were just betting Tennessee unders was fantastic because their defense was really goddamn good. Dylan Sampson was a great running back, and Nico Amaliava couldn't hit a fucking deep ball to save his goddamn life. Nico Amaliava held Tennessee back. He was the reason that they did not reach the expectations that they made the college football playoff, but then you got the shit kicked out of you, threw for 100 yards against Ohio State. This kid wasn't that good. Now you're out of the SEC, though, and you get to go to, it's the Big Ten, but what are your thoughts on the Bruins? How do you think their 2025 looks? But more importantly, how do you think Nico Amaliava does with a change of scenery?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it was it was just a huge mistake for him to do that.
Yeah.
He's going to end up in a spot where it's going to be harder to be successful. You can just look at the win total here. It's 5.5. So they're really not even expected to make a bowl game.
Yeah.
They're 201 to win a conference. What are they to win a national championship? Fucking.
Oh, God, 1 million?
Yeah. 1,000 to 1?
Yeah, it's like if you look at their leading wide receiver was Logan Loya. I just talked about him. He transferred.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think.
Leading wide receiver in terms of third on the chart, the Matavo, the tight end, and TJ Harden were the best pass catchers they had. But in terms of wide receiver, Logan Loya, and he's gone.
Yeah, and it was pretty clear, not only, you go ask for that type of money, right? And then it's pretty clear that Tennessee didn't think he was worth it.
No, yeah, I said from the get-go, it's kind of telling. I feel like they know he might not have the stuff because why do you do that? Why do you sacrifice? You're now going to a worse situation with a worse offense and a worse likelihood that you're going to be a day one guy in the NFL draft. So if you were you were getting millions of dollars from an SEC team, if you know you've got the stuff, you're going to be a first-round guy, you're going to be making $20+ million guaranteed, probably more, if you live up to the expectations and you go to the NFL. Your road to the NFL just got extremely more difficult because you wanted to try to squeeze a couple more $1 million out of Tennessee, and instead you felt like you would go to UCLA and get it from them. Congratulations, jackass. Taxes are going to make sure that doesn't happen. But yeah, you didn't fucking do anything. You didn't look good at any turn, any big game. There was no game other than the cupcakes at the beginning of the year. Not one time was it like, okay, he's arrived. He's Nico Amaliava just put the fucking team on his back, and he willed them to a victory. It was the goddamn defense. It was Pierce coming off the edge, getting strip sacks. Sampson fucking carrying the offense. You go to Ohio State, you get absolutely goddamn embarrassed. So it was one of the wildest decisions that I can remember. And I think it's going to really affect him going forward because that's not going away. The opposing fans, like that's going to – hopefully he's mentally sound because that's going to be tough to block out. You know?
Yeah. There's definitely going to be eyes on UCLA, though.
Oh, yeah.
Just to see how bad it is.
But people are going to be rooting for your downfall now. And you're going to be able to feel that. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully he's able to block that out and block out the noise. Because, people are going to be fucking berating you when you walk out the tunnel. So it just became a lot harder to be Nico Amaliava, for sure. But if you go in and you light it up at UCLA, maybe he takes a step. Maybe he starts actually being able to hit a goddamn deep ball and not overthrowing it by 15 yards. He's got an arm. He can throw that bitch 80 yards, but his receiver's only 60 down the fucking field. So maybe he can take the step. I don't know. I don't see it, though. I got to see it before I could fucking back this team for a damn second. So I didn't think Garbers was that bad. I just thought they had no one. They didn't have shit.
Yeah.
You know? It's like you look at the running backs, fucking TJ Harden was the best running back, averaged 4 yards a carry. He only scored 2 touchdowns on the year. So offense was tough to come by. Garbers completed basically 65% of his passes. Remember, they came in and played LSU, and it was like, Jesus fucking Christ, they're giving us a game. Until they weren't, but yeah, I don't know. If UCLA makes a bowl game, I'll be surprised. So Wisconsin, Luke Fickell, year 3, 5-7 last year, 3-6 in conference play. The win total going into 25 is 5.5. Shaded to the under, -144, +118 if you like the over. 2024 got derailed when starting quarterback Tyler Van Dyke's injury happened against Alabama. They started 2-0 and then injured first drive against Bama. The Badgers were scrappy in certain spots, a one-possession game deep into the fourth quarter with Penn State. They led at half. It was a 3-point defensive battle with Oregon, a funky game where everybody was like, what is going on with the Ducks late in the season? But they lost 5 straight games to end the season. Billy Edwards Jr. transfers in from Maryland. He's going to take over under center. Leading rusher Tawi Walker went to Cincinnati, but Darian Dupree and Cade Giacomelli return. I have in all caps, I have no fucking clue what to expect with Wisconsin. I think Luke Fickell's a good coach. It's year 3 now, so it's kind of getting to that point where you got to do something. I think it's a tough place to go and recruit and have success unless you're getting a Jonathan Taylor or a Braylon Allen or what was it, Monty Ball. Where's the premier running back that we're used to with Wisconsin? I don't feel like it's been a couple years.
Yeah.
I mean, Braylon Allen was not too long ago, but what are your thoughts on the Badgers going into 25? Do you think Luke Fickell kind of lives up to the expectations? They were happy when they got him from Cincinnati. It has not gone the way they were hoping.
Yeah, it's tough for him. They just haven't been able to, the quarterback transfer from Maryland, Billy Edwards Jr., I just don't know if he's going to be the guy that saves Fickell's job here,
Yeah.
I think he's better than Braden Locke.
Yeah. Do you think this is it for Luke Fickell if they go 5-7? If they miss a bowl game, do you think this is it?
Oh.
Year 3.
I would imagine so, but
if not, then
it's not always the coach's fault, Sometimes it's situation. There's nothing he could do about it. But
yeah, I mean, Tyler Van Dyke came over from Miami. There was once upon a time where Tyler Van Dyke had Heisman hype. He was.
Yeah, they were saying going to NFL.
Yeah. So they swung on a guy in the portal. I don't think even if he doesn't get hurt, I don't know that it was necessarily gonna.
I mean, I'm sure they would have been a lot better. Locke looked like.
No, they would be better for sure.
It was terrible there at this stretch. And what would they finish? 3-6 in conference, 5-7. So they just missed out on a bowl game. Yep. I think Van Dyke healthy, Wisconsin would have made a bowl last year.
Yeah. No, yeah, that certainly would have accounted for at least one more win for sure. But yeah, at 5.5 wins, little juice to the under. I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Badgers, and we'll see. We'll see if Luke Fickell can finally live up to it. But there's nothing sticking out to me that I got to jump on anything with the Badgers. Northwestern, real quick, 4-8 last year, 2-7 in conference play. David Brown, head coach, 3.5, one of the lower win totals. Heavily shaded to the over, -160. Preston Stone coming in to play quarterback. Was at SMU, got benched for Jennings. They went back and forth. Rhett Lashley kept going back and forth between Jennings and Stone. Cam Porter returns at running back. He's a very solid player, in my opinion. Preston Stone at Northwestern could be interesting, though. You know?
Yeah.
He's got talent.
Yeah.
He makes mistakes. He's got talent, though. And this is – I mean, SMU is not like a huge program, I guess, but now they're having success. They made the college football playoff. You go to Northwestern where there's not nearly the expectations, only 3.5 on the win total. I think it could be a good spot for Preston Stone. Maybe they surprise some people. Maybe they give some people a game that we didn't necessarily think they could. I think he's a good player. So we'll see what happens there. Maryland, last year they go 4-8, 1-8 in conference play. Mike Loxley's back at head coach. We'll see for how long that is. 4.5 on the win total. Basically, same both sides. 115, -115 for the over, -105 for the under. Not much to really look forward to with Maryland football. This could be the end of Loxley's tenure. Transfer quarterback Justin Martin comes over from UCLA. I ain't got much more for you past that. I don't expect them to do much this season at all, let alone in conference play. Purdue. Head coach Barry Odom is back. 2024 was fucking terrible. 1-11 overall, 0-9 in conference play. Worst team in the conference. Going into 25, their win total's 3.5. Heavily shaded to the under, -192, +164 if you think that they're going to get 4 wins. Godspeed to you if you do. They were, like I said, the worst team. And of the 22 projected starters going into 2025, of the 22 starters, 17 are looking like they're going to be transfers. So, look, when you're that goddamn bad, clearly they cleaned house and they brought in a lot of new personnel, which you probably needed to do. Will it pan out? I have absolutely no idea. They were so bad. They only won 1 game. You would imagine you're going to go the other way. Maybe you get 2. But like I said, if you want to take that swing on them, more power to you. And we already touched on Rutgers. So,
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
Just a best bet. I'm trying to hold this P to save my life.
All right. So there you go. That is our breakdown of all the teams in the conference. We will now get to what we deem is the best bet for a future bet going into 2025. I'll let you go first.
I'm going to go Nebraska over 7.5 wins, -122. We touched on it. Think Raiola takes a little bit of step forward here with a little bit more to work with at receiver. And then defensively, I think with the transfer portal additions that they got, that they remain a little a solid defense. So we'll take Nebraska to get to 8-4.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same. I was teetering between Nebraska and I like Minnesota. I think Minnesota's going to have a decent year. I like them pretty much same though, and you got to lay a little bit more with Minnesota. If you want to take Minnesota's over, you got to go -150. I think Drake Lindsey's going to be good. I think Darius Taylor's they're going to get back to running the football and they're going to have a much better year. So I give you my blessing if you want to go with that one. But I'm going to also go with Nebraska as my Big Ten futures bet over 7.5 wins, -122. Dylan Raiola, it's now or never. We got to stop with the Mahomes shit, but I think we see Nebraska get in the win column 8 times this year at least. So there you go. That is our best bet. Nebraska over 7.5, -122. We will be back next week to break down the ACC. So be on the lookout for that. Hit the like and subscribe button. Like I said, we're an hour and a half into this. This is a college football look ahead. If you're, I throw this on when you're in the car, when you're on a drive, and we can see if we can help you make some money. So episode 224 is in the books. Do you have anything to say before we go?
Nope.
Y'all have a good one.
The house always wins. Play long enough, you never change the stakes. The house takes you. Unless, when that perfect hand comes along, you bet big, and then you take the house. I've been practicing this pitch a little bit. Did I rush it? Felt like I rushed.
That was good. I liked it.